got a question for you parents out there. If you send your child to school, what do you care about? Do you care about their homework, safety, zero tolerance, or all of the above? If you said zero tolerance and safety, you may be right. Listen to what Judith Brown DNS, a national school board association said over 10 years ago. Take a look.
They are not, says civil rights advocate Judith Brown DeAnnis.
It is ridiculous. It is extreme discipline. We have gone over the top with this, and instead of teaching children the right behaviors, instead of nurturing them, we're hauling them off in handcuffs.
Francisco Negron is with the National School Boards Association.
I don't think there's a public school to prison pipeline, and I certainly don't think that the presence of school resource officers is in some way contributing to that.
We know there are some bad things going on in our schools. There's gang activity, heavy drug activity, bullying in the extreme where the violence is real, and maybe you have to make sure that those kids get pulled out.
Right. But that's not what we're talking about. Everyone wants safety in the schools. We want discipline in our schools, but we don't need to see our children put into the juvenile justice system for very minor behavior that could have been handled by a parent.
Agreed. And if you heard the two words, zero tolerance, you may be onto something for our Throwback Thursday. During our Back to School month, we focused in on zero tolerance policies and why they make 0 sense. Let me just pull it up in here. Now, for those of you who don't remember, we talked about zero tolerance policies in the schools, how they made 0 sense. It's basically because they've gone over the board with this. And yes, do we need discipline? Yes. But we don't need to see children being put in the juvenile justice system for very minor behavior that could have been handled by a parent. This was 7 months ago, so take a look at a sample.
Use a butter knife. It's plastic. Plastic does.
Here's a portion of the broadcast from 7 months ago. If you missed it,
we are approaching the end of our Back to School month with lots of issues looking back on. We're going to look back at the zero tolerance policies and school securities. We're also going to look at school boards that just issued mask mandates. And speaking of COVID, there's nothing happening. Everything's
Under zero tolerance, school officials were required to suspend the girl from the 3rd grade and call the police. She was read her rights and charged with criminal mischief.
She doesn't understand what she's going through. She doesn't understand at all.
The juvenile court judge who will hear the case says his courtroom is swamped with similar cases of children who are unfairly criminalized.
When the school board applies the zero tolerance policy, I essentially become the principal.
So that was a portion of that episode from 7 months ago. You want to watch the whole episode? We'll have that link in the description. So, here is some news clips all about these zero tolerance policies from Annie Fox. Take a look.
Zero tolerance. 2 words put in place to protect your children in school.
But in 3 separate discipline cases in Virginia Beach, that's really has embarrassed the school system. A 7th grader suspended for giving a teacher a compliment. She called it sexual harassment.
A 12-year-old suspended for shooting an airsoft gun in his own front yard. The school said it was too close to a bus stop.
And a 6th grader suspended for taking a razor blade from a classmate who was cutting himself. Tonight, Andy Fox asks, is there a point when common sense should replace zero tolerance? It's an interview with top administrators you'll see only on 10.
Tom and Nicole, these are 3 high-profile cases that have brought unwanted attention to Virginia Beach schools. The superintendent says their discipline policy is not and cannot be characterized as a zero-tolerance policy. There are plenty of people who think she's wrong.
So, are they wrong? Could there be some common sense that we can learn from this video? We'll hear more from Andy Fox when we return. Then, the Young Turks are going to look into this, like I talked about in that video 7 months ago. Stay with us. So tonight's Throwback Thursday is all about zero tolerance policies and why they make 0 sense. In the 3 cases that you're about to see, from sexual harassment to being a razor blade, have we gone too far by not giving out common sense? Here's Andy Fox.
It took 30 seconds with Virginia Beach City Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Sheila Magula for her to say this.
You understand Virginia Beach does not have a zero tolerance policy.
No zero tolerance policy, and another 5 minutes to say it again.
We do not, as a school division, have a zero tolerance policy.
No zero tolerance? That's news to attorney Kevin Martingale, who represents students before the school board for disciplinary incidents.
I don't see how. I mean, the language here says mandatory expulsion.
Virginia Beach may not call it zero tolerance, but in its own code of student conduct and the school board's published regulations, there are several offenses calling for mandatory expulsion where the students automatically recommended by the principal to the superintendent for expulsion.
Yes.
In March, we reported on Adriana Harris, who was suspended with a recommendation for expulsion for possessing a razor blade on school property.
He lifted up his sleeve and showed me his bloody cuts.
Adriana held the razor for split seconds before throwing it away in a trash can. After taking it from a fellow classmate who was cutting his arm, she may have saved his life. She reported the incident the next day, and that's when she got suspended. Adriana's mother, Rachel Harris, complained to the principal.
She says it's policy, it's out of her hands.
We asked school board chairman Dan Edwards about Adriana's expulsion case.
The policy did not absolutely require the actions that were taken.
But that was the interpretation of the policy by the school principal.
Everything they told me was policy, policy, policy.
The interpretation by the principal in terms of the facts of the case drove that and not a mandatory requirement.
Our investigation into Edwards' own school board policy found it is mandatory. Under mandatory expulsion number 3, possession of a dangerous weapon. The razor was considered by the school administration to be a dangerous weapon.
The principal has a range of options, and that's how our discipline guidelines are set up.
But those options and mandatory expulsion come after the suspension, not before. In the end, and after our reporting, Adriana was immediately readmitted to the school and the incident stricken from her record. But look what she had to go through. Martingale says it is cruel to the student to suspend first and ask questions later.
It puts everybody on pins and needles wondering, am I the next person who's going to be the victim of a set of rules that are not being enforced in an intelligent way?
An interesting development. Virginia Beach school discipline policies are now under review.
The board will have an opportunity to hear recommendations from the administration, whether or not we should either adjust or clarify anything in those policies.
Well, that is movement towards removing the embarrassment factor from some discipline cases. Discuss before you suspend. Dr. Magula wanted to point out that there are 86 schools and nearly 70,000 students in the Virginia Beach school system. She says, quote, the principals do an excellent job navigating discipline cases, but there is always the possibility of human error. Tomorrow night at 6, I'll report on a school system that has given up on zero tolerance. They got burned by zero tolerance, and they won't do it again. I'm Andy Fox, 10 on your side.
Andy has a good point. Which brings me to... You know what it is? Common sense alert! I mean, suspension for sexual harassment when someone complimented you? Suspended for a freaking razor when it's a freaking weapon? Do y'all remember the video I showed that I played for you 7 months ago? And for non-subscribers, I mean, here's another one from Andy Fox.
Girl who got the country all fired up over Virginia Beach's zero-tolerance weapons policy was back in school this morning. We've been telling you about Adriana Harris's story since she was threatened with expulsion over stopping a fellow student from cutting himself with a razor blade. Well, Andy Fox broke the news that the school decided against punishing her. These are scenes from yesterday, and Andy is back tonight with a final chapter of this story. Andy?
Yeah, Tom, Adriana returned to class today, but her last week has been a nightmare, and probably unnecessarily so. She and her parents are concerned that she got wrapped up in the zero-tolerance debate. When Adriana Harris and her parents showed up for her due process disciplinary hearing, they asked for two things. Adriana returns to class today, and the incident is removed from her record. This letter formally informed the Harrises both will happen. At the meeting, though, the Harrises expressed concern on the zero-tolerance policy that got them in this position.
We just told them our side of the story and how we felt about how the heavy-handedness and how it was handled with the zero tolerance. And we understand it is policy. But I think now the policy just needs to be changed.
In my opinion, the whole idea of zero tolerance is a bad idea.
We showed Adriana's case file to attorney Kevin Martingale, who defends Virginia Beach students who get in trouble at school.
Teachers, administrators, school board members should all be allowed to exercise adult discretion. That's why we have people instead of a formula.
Adriana was suspended because she took a razor from a friend who was cutting his arm. She immediately threw away the razor. But is what she did what we mean when we talk about zero tolerance?
To the extent that we have policies that are tying the hands of principals and leading them to be required to expel for a bad reason, those are the kinds of policies that need to be redone.
Virginia Beach's zero tolerance policy reads, a student in possession of any weapon, which a razor can be, shall automatically be recommended for long-term suspension or expulsion. Martingale's troubled with the word automatically. Is zero tolerance just black and white, or can it also be gray?
And what we have to do is empower our principals and our teachers and other people in a position to make decisions, to use discretion. Discretion's a
Zero tolerance is a Virginia Beach school board policy established by the school board. I called all 11 school board members to talk about their policy. 7 of these publicly elected school board members refused to return our calls. Sam Reed actually said to me he doesn't want to be out in front on this issue. Elizabeth Taylor says she won't comment because she sits in on some of these disciplinary hearings. Carolyn Weems said she'd get back in touch with me, but never did. We're on this story and will continue pursuing the elected officials to talk about their no tolerance policy. In the newsroom, Andy Fox, 10 on your side.
Now going back to common sense alert. Like I said before, you don't suspend a kid for sexual harassment because he gave you a compliment saying you're cute. I mean, you said a sexual joke. That's sexual harassment. You touch an inappropriate part of the body, that's sexual harassment. And that woman, that student who took the razor blade and threw it away, you should not suspend her. You should suspend the person that brought that weapon on, not the woman. She took the razor and threw it in the trash. She should be thanked. She reported it and now she got expelled. What is the whole point of zero tolerance anyway? What is the whole point? Coming up next, the Young Turks are going to look into this matter. I've played you the video. I did not show it to you, Sarah Mutsku, on the channel because if I did, the Young Turks are going to kick my ass. I'll play it for you. Stay with us. I gotta say, after over 600 episodes of the show, of the broadcast, one issue has never, ever made me cringe or duck down under the table. That is the issue of two words: zero tolerance. If you're joining us, tonight's Throwback Thursday is all about school discipline and zero tolerance. And the question is, does zero tolerance policy make zero sense? I'll answer the question in just a minute. But here's Professor Graham to tell us about the 3 R's.
Hello class, I'm Professor Graham, and I'm here to discuss the 3 R's of education in 2015. Reading, writing, and overreacting. You've heard the stories. The 7-year-old who bites his Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun and gets suspended. The honor roll middle schooler who's in trouble because she used a butter knife to cut up her lunchtime apple. But what's made zero tolerance policies worse is the increased involvement of the police. A few weeks ago in North Carolina, a 13-year-old boy kissed a classmate on a dare. He was arrested and charged with second-degree sexual assault. Earlier this year in Upson County, Georgia, a 4th grader with developmental issues wrote "bone threat," his attempt at bomb threat, on the school wall. He was arrested for that too. One of the strangest cases was right here in Georgia, when thousands of kids were kept out of school on September 11th over a Lone Kooks Facebook post. The post claimed that the Black Panthers were going to invade South Carolina and attack white kids and teachers at school. The post, made by a self-declared general in the United States Confederate Army, was ludicrous on its face. But the Morgan County, Georgia police took it so seriously, they put up their own Facebook warning, and that post panicked so many parents that 1 in 5 Morgan County kids was kept out of school on 9/11. Supporters of zero tolerance policies insist that the world is so dangerous that we have to take every threat, no matter how silly, seriously. Unfortunately, that can sometimes lead to an impossible choice. Either overreact or do nothing. I've got a third way. Let's let police and local officials use their judgment again. Let's press legislators to relieve local schools of zero tolerance policies so that we can rely on common sense. Let's have a statewide ban of zero tolerance policies so police and school officials can use their discretion. See something, say something? Count me in. See something, do something stupid? Sorry, class. I give that an F.
And I would agree. Where is the common sense in all this? I'll bring a butter knife to school to cut up an apple? Will you use a spork to that? I need an example. This damn apple won't cut. My spork won't cut my apple. Cut already. Cut. Cut already. Come on, Sporky. Cut the apple. This damn apple won't cut. Oh, I got my butter knife. It feels better. Is that a butter knife? You, come here right now. Sit down. Give me that. Why would you bring a butter knife to school? Because I wanted to cut my apple. Too bad. We have a policy. You're out. Oh, what's that? Oh. I mean, hell is wrong with you? We've lost common sense. A butter knife is a piece of plastic. A plastic butter knife. Plastic doesn't hurt you. It doesn't cut you. You take it to a sharpener, it may cut you. It's a piece of plastic. 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 Get it fucking right. Get it right. Don't overreact and say, is that a weapon I see? I mean, now here's something from the Young Turks. I'll play you that next. Stay with us. Every day, we hear about school stories in the news. This story you're about to hear from the Young Turks years ago, it's really got me sick. I didn't want to show you this because I wanted you all to see my reaction. But a parent brings a cake. The knife was in there. They cut the cake, and that student was suspended. Just take a look at this.
Zachary Christie's story. He's a 6-year-old from Delaware. He basically took a pocket knife to school. Mm-hmm. It's a utensil, camping utensil that could be used as a knife, a fork, and a spoon. Okay, so he took this utensil to school, and when school officials saw it, they decided to take action against him. Okay, of course, schools have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to weapons, especially after all the school shootings and everything. So because of this, he now faces 45 days in the district's reform school.
Reform school? I don't know what that's like, but that doesn't sound good. Oh, well, look at this guy. No wonder he totally deserves it. This guy looks like a thug, straight up, okay? I mean, this guy's gonna cut everybody up in that school.
Look, here's the thing, okay? I don't agree with the zero tolerance policy. I think it's ridiculous, right? You have to have some judgment on a case-by-case basis, okay?
Yes.
That being said, you can't bring a knife to school. I mean, I don't think that he should spend 45 days in a reform school. I don't think he should spend any time in a reform school. But there definitely needs to be some consequences so the 6-year-old understands that it's not okay to bring a knife to school. Even if he does it, even if he brings it without the intention of hurting someone else, he could accidentally hurt someone else. Or someone else can accidentally use that and hurt other students. So, yeah, he needs to know that it's wrong. The problem that I have with this story is his mother and everybody is saying, oh, this kid did nothing wrong. It's all about, these school policies are wrong. So this little 6-year-old boy is walking around thinking, yeah, bringing knives to school is okay. It's not me that did something wrong. It's the stupid school with their stupid policies that are doing something wrong.
Here comes the hanging judge again. That's unbelievable. All right, now look, other parts of the story are that a girl whose grandmother sent in a birthday cake, sent it in with a knife to cut the cake. Then this is my favorite part of the story. They cut the cake and eat it, and afterwards the teacher tells the principal, and then they suspend the student.
Yeah, and that see,
No, you don't get to eat your cake and have it too. Okay, right. That's not right.
And that particular story, I 100% disagree with. And like I said...
But it's zero tolerance. Zero tolerance is zero tolerance.
I said in the beginning that I don't agree with the zero tolerance policy. However, students need to be aware that they shouldn't be allowed to bring guns as well, but knives.
Yes, that I agree with.
Or any type of weapon to school.
But you see, that's an excellent point right there, because with a gun, it's fairly unambiguous. Mm-hmm. Like if you bring a gun to school, it's not like you were going to cut the cake with a gun, right? Well, I was going to shoot it a couple of times and stuff. Or I thought this was a cool thing I found in Boy Scouts. No guns, right? That's obvious. But there's 100 different things that a knife could be used for, like cutting food, right? So that's where the problem comes in. And the problem comes in when they get expansive. We did another story where they say no weapons, and they suspended a girl who had a Tweety chain. They're like, hey, it's a chain's a weapon, you're gone.
I know. And that's usually what happens when the country experiences some sort of crisis, right? All these school shootings happen, and of course the response is to over-exaggerate.
Look, let's get reasonable here. First of all, zero tolerance has a good and a bad reason behind it, okay? The good reason behind it is when they let people use judgment, they usually screw it up. And what they realized is that it gets applied, the policy against bringing quote-unquote weapons to school gets applied to minority students at disproportionate rates than white students. But it's not a little disproportionate, it's grossly disproportionate. Like in some cases, 2 to 3 times as much applied to minority students. Then you go, oh, okay, yeah, I see what the problem is, right? But the bad side of doing zero tolerance is you can't remove human judgment from things. And if you do, it's partly being lazy. It's taking a shortcut. Instead of fixing the problem, and even if it's discrimination, then the problem is discrimination. And how you apply it, you should recognize it. And that's actually probably just only one indication of a larger problem you have. And address that problem. Burying it and then, and going over it just by calling zero tolerance, all right, then we won't use our mind at all. And we'll just ban everybody. Oh, that pen is kind of sharp. That's a weapon. You're all suspended. I mean, this can get ridiculous. No, that's why we have the capacity for judgment, and we should have administrators who can, put that into effect. So for this kid, look, obviously he shouldn't have brought it in. He got overzealous, but it's not a real knife. I mean, it's part of this camping thing, and we understand what the story is. Okay, teach him a lesson. You know what? You're suspended for it. You know what?
No, not even that.
2 days.
Not even that. I don't think the kid should even get suspended, because you get suspended. I mean, he's a 6-year-old, so it doesn't matter. But
it doesn't matter at all.
Suspension
that sends
is
the message perfectly fine.
I don't think suspension is a good disciplinary action, because you don't want to send kids out of school. You want them to get an education. Give them detention after school.
Look, if you said to me as a kid, what do you want? 2 days of suspension or 45 days of reform school? I'm like, suspension.
No. I understand that. I understand
that. And that's part of the problem you're saying.
Yes, that is part of the problem. So instead, after class is over, he should spend more time in school in detention, and that's something that he's going to hate, but it works well in 2 different ways. I mean...
All right, you know what? We're going to have a deal here. We're going to work this out. A week of detention.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay, deal?
Yeah. Deal.
Okay. 45 days in reform school. God knows what's going to happen. I don't know how bad the reform school is, but it doesn't sound pleasant. Okay? So...
Maybe I missed something. What happened to conversation and understanding? Oh, so little Johnny. I don't know why that's always the name.
In this case, it's Zachary. Yeah, little Zachary.
Little shit. You've got a knife on this pocket thing that you brought in because you're trying to show off because you're happy about Boy Scouts. You can't bring that to school. You know this will hurt somebody. Take it home, don't bring it back anymore. Isn't that the end of the discussion? I don't understand the detention, the suspension, or any of that stuff. Because I feel like detention should be for people who consciously are out to cause harm at school, and then they're going to learn their lesson and go, damn, I'm going to think twice before I do that messed up thing again, because then I'm going to get detention. He wasn't thinking. He wasn't going, I'm going to fuck somebody up.
Is he Zachary? He's 6. Anyway, no, I hear you, Jam. But and that goes to the problem with these zero tolerance policies, which is that it's usually because people are lazy and scared, okay? And because if they don't take drastic action and then later something happens in that school, then they're going to get fired. And they don't want to get fired. That's 90% of the reason why anybody does anything at any job. They don't want to get fired. And that's why they have these. And that's why I don't like zero tolerance policies. In fact, I'm declaring right now, I have zero tolerance for zero tolerance policies. Think about it.
All right. We're postponing this, and coming up next week on the broadcast, I'll give you a break investigation into these zero tolerance policies. Now, it may be confusing with the back to school week, but this is something I came up with 7 months ago. So on the back to school week, and now it's something that came up while I was watching this. So next week, an investigation into zero tolerance policies and why they just don't make sense, and what's with not using common sense. Because this is what I'm taking care of. And speaking of bringing weapons on schools and having zero tolerance about that, coming up next, can you ever imagine your child bringing a gun to school and getting suspended for it? I mean, not just a real gun. We're talking about toy guns. It's an issue we focused in on. But first, we're coming up. But also coming up next, did you get suspended for having a flag on a truck? What is wrong with these? What is wrong with people? Having a flag on top of the truck to support America or Confederate, whatever? Stay with us. Last season of the broadcast, we focused in on being suspended for having a flag on a truck. Here's a question for you as a student. Can you ever imagine running a truck with your flag on it and then having a school official tell you that you can't have that on unless you want to be suspended? Take a look at that episode.
But there it was again this morning as Ryan arrived for class. A man reports the school wasn't kidding around.
This flag conjures up a lot of opinions and a lot of emotions. While the high school student who was suspended for flying this flag says his rights were violated.
It's kind of bullcrap.
17-year-old Ryan Delicato was suspended after flying the Confederate flag on the back of his truck and parking on school property.
They were saying they were harming other kids' education and everything because it was a distraction to them.
The senior goes to Warrenmont High School. He says the Confederate flag is not racist, but a symbol of his family's history.
It's for our Southern heritage and not for a race, nothing like that.
He never ride around with a white sheet on his head.
The superintendent tells Local 4 this is the third time Delicato brought the flag to school. On Wednesday, the teen was warned he'd be suspended if he did it again. This morning, the senior was sent home for the day.
They're saying I have no freedom of speech in school, and I think that's wrong.
A child who takes it one thing the wrong way, and now it's blown up to this.
But here's what I said.
And again, if they schools respect First Amendment rights, but you have to understand you brought the flag. If they tell you if you bring it again, you will be suspended. And a more disciplinary action. So in this case, I have to side with the school on this one. Because the school respects everyone's First Amendment rights. But there are restrictions about that people need to take. And if you look at Supreme Court cases, they broaden it. I mean, they're going to restrict. I mean, one Supreme Court case, you don't shed your rights at the schoolhouse gate. And a bit later, a lawsuit that happened and a bit later, actually, let's just take a break. I can't even talk today, so let's take a break. When we come back, there's going to be more of these students who got suspended over school who told students to remove their flag on the truck and got suspended, unlike other people. In other words, we're going to hear the student side and the school side of the story. And then later, later suing the school. One school charter was sued years ago because of a Facebook post. Don't go away.
Now let's see that South Carolina student. Take a look at this. Because that's the first time in over 600 episodes I've talked about this, where kids have been bringing flags on campus. And it's causing a distraction to the educational process. Take a look.
School officials tell WBTV it's a safety issue, that no flags of any kind are allowed to be flown on vehicles. But Peyton Robinson says he's had the flag on his pickup truck last year and again this year for the past month, and no one has said anything until now. Just 18 years old, Peyton Robinson wears his heart on his sleeve.
Just proud to be an American citizen.
Outside his house, the American flag is like a greeter.
I've had family members who've served.
The American flag and the POW MIA flag fly on his pickup. But shortly after Robinson arrived at York Comprehensive High School Wednesday morning, he says an administrator drew a line.
He said, we're having some issues. Some people was complaining about the flags on your truck, possibly offend them.
According to Robinson, he was told to remove the flags when he got home and not to come back with them. The high school senior is upset.
I don't understand if it was a Confederate flag or something that might offend somebody. I wouldn't do that. But an American flag, That's our country's flag. I have every right to do it.
Old Glory is flying at the high school. The school district says students were told they couldn't have any physical flags on their cars because of safety.
I don't see a safety issue. I mean, I understand it's a big flag. It's 4x6, but nobody's complained about it being in their way or anything.
Robinson says before the school day was over, an administrator went to his truck, removed the bolts, and took the flags down.
I was pretty mad.
He posted about the incident on his Facebook page.
So this is what he said from Payne Robinson. This was from years ago. Let me read this to you. I'll tell you, you may not see it, but I'm going to read it to you. I've been told by two administrators at my school this morning that I can't have an American flag on my truck because other people have complained about it. Well, let me tell you something. I have every right to fly an American flag. It will not be coming off of my truck. This really pisses me off. I ask that everyone that sees this post that attends your conference flies an American flag of some sort or whatever they may drive to school tomorrow to prove a point. I will not let this go down without a fight. Hashtag America, hashtag fight for our right.
By nightfall, some fellow students were in solidarity at the high school flying the flags on their cars. They're vowing to do it Thursday morning, regardless of penalty. School officials say it's a pre-existing policy, but Peyton Robinson said in the morning he was told the flags offended some people. In the afternoon, school administrators said it was a safety issue. Robinson is wondering, which is it? In York, Colleen Harry, WBTV, on your side.
Now here's one. Here's another one.
Well, Senior says he will go to court if that's what it takes. School administrators asked him to take down a large Confederate flag that he has flying from his truck.
Student Robert Martin refuses to do that, arguing that there's a double standard at the school. Joy's here now to explain.
Can't marry. Robert Martin says for now he gave up his rights to park at the school so he can keep flying his flag. He says the school allows kids to wear shirts and belt buckles displaying the Confederate symbol and asks why is his display so different?
Started Monday morning, first period, they called me out of class and asked me to take the flag down. And
Clay High School senior Robert Martin says he was excited. He had just gotten his pickup truck last week and decorated it with a large Confederate flag when he drove it to school Monday. He says someone complained to school administrators who asked Martin to take the flag down.
When we can wear the rebel flag on our clothes to school and it's in front of kids in the classroom, my truck is sitting in the parking lot. Therefore, I don't see it bothering anybody.
Martin says when he got home after school, he told his mom what happened. She went to the school the next day, asking why the flag can be displayed in other ways at the school, but not on her son's truck.
Either they're allowed on school grounds or they're not. I said, you can't have it both ways. I said, and right now that's kind of the game you guys are playing.
She says she couldn't find any rule her son was violating in the school handbook and allowed him to keep his flag flying. Martin says the school threatened to suspend him, so he says he gave up his parking pass to be able to keep flying his flag and tells us a rally is planned for Friday by friends and fellow students who support him.
The flag's not racist at all. I'm not racist. I got black people in my family. There's soldiers stood behind that flag, and I'm going to stand behind that flag. That flag will not come down. It didn't come down back in the day. It's not going to come down now.
We reached out to the Clay County School District, who emailed us saying in part, quote, the school district respects a student's right to self-expression. However, our code of conduct also states the right to self-expression may not infringe upon the rights of others and cannot interfere with the orderly educational process. To read the entire response from the school district and hear the full interviews with Robert Martin and his mother, look for this story on the homepage of news4jax.com.
Now take a look at this story that I showed you last year.
Aggressive.
Confederate flag on the back of his truck and parking on school property.
It was saying they were harming other kids' education and everything because it was a distraction to them.
The senior goes to Warren Mott High School. He says the Confederate flag is not racist, but a symbol of his family's history.
For our Southern heritage and not for a race, nothing like that.
He might as well ride around with a white sheet on his head.
The superintendent tells Local 4 this is the third time Delicato brought the flag to school. On Wednesday, the teen was warned he'd be suspended if he did it again. This morning, the senior was sent home for the day.
They're saying I have no freedom of speech in school, and I think that's wrong.
A child who takes it one thing the wrong way, and now it's blown up to this.
The superintendent says numerous students complained about the flag and staged a protest. At one point, someone even cut down Delicato's Confederate flag.
He felt like it was a slap in the face that a kid could come to his school with that flag and nothing's done about it.
I understand that people have some issues with the flag. I understand that. But we can't just all stop doing things just because somebody doesn't like something.
Now, the superintendent of Warren Consolidated Schools says while they respect the First Amendment, their policy prohibits them from allowing anyone to bring materials to school that could be disruptive, and that includes the Confederate flag. She says that if Ryan does bring the Confederate flag back to school, he will be suspended again, followed by a more progressive discipline. I asked Ryan, are you going to do it? And he said, probably not. It's not worth getting suspended again so close to graduation. Reporting live, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
It was a little upsetting because I'd like to be able to show my history, and
Now take a look at this student right here. She was sent home for the same shit.
It was a little upsetting because I'd like to be able to show my history, and I think school, it's a great place to be able to show that you know your true history and be able to be proud of it.
A North Fort Myers high school student kicked off campus after driving her truck to school with Confederate flags on the back. She and her family turning to 4 in Your Corner, wanting to know, isn't this their right to express their freedom of speech? 4 in Your Corner's Malcolm Johnson working to get answers. Malcolm?
Patrick, as you know, the removal of the Confederate flag outside South Carolina's capital has kept the flag in the headlines. Most of the controversy stems from who it offends and how people feel about what it represents. Like many Southerners, this family says the flag represents their heritage, and there's no reason it should stop them from being able to park their truck on the campus of North Fort Myers High School. Of the 3 flags on this white pickup truck, 2 of them stopped 11th grader Sky Hunter from being able to park at North Fort Myers High School. On her first day of school, the security guard, then the vice principal, had a message for her.
He came out and told me that I had to leave, and I asked him why, and he said that the American flag was fine to fly, but I couldn't fly my 2 Confederate flags.
And she says when she protested, the vice principal had a firm response.
He told me parking my truck there, it was my vehicle, my responsibility to get rid of the flags. And I told him it's my vehicle, it's my responsibility. I should be able to fly what I like on them.
She said she didn't want to start trouble, so she went home and had her father drop her off at school. He was upset too.
It's a heritage. I mean, and I don't understand why she can't fly them. Freedom of speech. And I don't understand what's going on.
So I asked the school district what was going on. I called and emailed the district throughout the day. They never got back to me. But shortly after school let out, the school's principal called the family to apologize. The principal tells the family she can now park on campus with all 3 of her flags. Sky tells me she didn't understand why she couldn't park there in the first place and says it wasn't just the message, but the manner it was delivered.
I wasn't expecting to be told to leave right on the spot, and especially in such a rude manner that I was asked.
She claims even if she wanted to take the flags down when she was asked to remove them, she couldn't because they're bolted in. The Lee County School District still hasn't responded to my 2 questions. 1, why was she sent home in the first place? And 2, why did the school officials change their minds and allow her to bring the flags on campus? I'll keep pressing for answers. Malcolm Johnson, Fox 4, in your corner.
Now there's probably more to this case. If you, like I said before, if you YouTubed suspended from school for flag on truck, this would help you out from 11 years ago. And let me say this story prompted me. Just take a look.
She's my baby, that's for sure.
Ashton Jacobs says what's on his truck shows his pride.
It has such an appeal to it, and it's just like, I don't know, it feels good for me.
But while the names on the side are written in mud, What's gotten him in trouble lately is what he flies from the back.
If this would have never happened, then there'd be no controversy over it. I wouldn't, flaunt it or anything. It's just on my truck because I like it.
Earlier this month, when he brought his truck with the Confederate flag in tow to his school, he says the Carolina Forest High School resource officer told him he had to take it down.
I was like, all right. I just called my mom and I was like, they told me to take my flag down.
But while the young man obliged, he and his family still don't agree.
I'm sorry that the Confederate battle flag offends people. I really am. But I want people to know that I'm here to tell them that it's only got to do with our heritage, and that is it.
It still equates down to it's a place of learning.
Horry County School Board member Joe DeFeo says Ashton was forced to take the flag down because it could be offensive to others.
I understand the quote-unquote free speech, but you have to remember the Supreme Court already said there is not unlimited free speech in a school. It's a place of learning.
But limited free speech anywhere is why the family is hiring a lawyer.
I just simply want the school board to let these kids have a freedom of speech, whether it be if they want to fly the Mexican flag, the American flag, the Italian flag, whatever it may be. To a point, let them have freedom of speech.
And anytime he's not at school, Ashton plans to keep the flag right where he wants it, in the back of his truck.
It's just a symbol for me personally.
A flag that represents his pride, but often represents another man's pain. In Horry County, Ryan Knockan, News Channel 15.
We could go on and on with this, with another Throwback Thursday about this, but I just want to show you what happened a year ago. But our final story when we return, see you at the poll. An incident that happened years ago, probably a year or two ago, and ended with a student. You know what? Tell Alanis will explain. Stay with us. I don't have to explain to you. Just stay with me. 3 years ago, we talked about an event called the See You at the Poll. It's an event that they just gather around, you open up your Bible, and so and so. You're about to hear from a student in Flower Bluff who told her side of the story about she did this thing, dozen donuts, and the principal cut it short. You will also, the other side of the story, you also hear what the principal had to say, the former principal, and her and the student's mother spoke out. Here's Taylor Alanis.
This morning, a mom took to social media saying the See You at the Poll gathering her daughter organized at Flower Bluff High School was stopped by the assistant principal. Michelle Crossland says her daughter worked hard to get students to attend, brought donuts, and had a small encouraging message, but says that all stopped when the assistant principal ran out and screamed everyone away. The See You at the Poll website says the event started in 1990 and has become a tradition at schools around the world. Although it isn't an official school event, it is a student-organized and led meeting that's meant to lift up the students, campus, and their families. Over in Ingleside, the police department decided to embrace the tradition. Officers joined hand in hand with students and prayed with them this morning.
The police are their friends. We want to help them. It's not about, we're not the bad guys taking everybody to jail. We are all about community policing. We want to be involved with our community, and we want the community to know that we're there for them.
The principal of Flower Bluff High School released a statement via Facebook this afternoon saying, in part, the decision was made out of an abundance of caution for the safety of students. Unfortunately for the students, the organizer of the event, and the campus, there was miscommunication on about why the gathering was taking place. It goes on to say they support the free speech of their students, personally apologize to the students' family for disrupting the gathering of the See You at the Poll event. We welcome students who would like to take part in a reschedule of the event to do so. And coming up at 10, we will hear from the organizer of the See You at the Poll at Flower Bluff High School and her mom about how the event came to an abrupt stop. Rudy?
Now you will hear the side of the story from the mother and the daughter. You'll hear both sides of the story when we come back. Stay with us. Returning to our Throwback Thursday story, Mary Crossland, a former senior at Flower Bluff High, was cut short 3 years ago for the See You at the Poll because of an assistant principal. You've heard from Ingleside Police. Now, you're about to hear from the senior and the parent as they tell their side of the story. You will hear again also from the former principal of the high school. Now, remind you, this was 3 years ago. We're not throwing anyone under the bus. We're stating facts and common sense. Once again, here's Taylor Elenice.
Something that I look forward to every year.
See you at the poll.
It's just a really cool event where you get together with other Christians or just people and just pray for your community.
A day of student prayers celebrated around the world. And leading the meeting for the second year in a row at Flower Bluff High School was senior Mary Crossland. She says she got permission from the school's security guard to invite people on the cafeteria's microphone.
I only brought like 3 dozen donuts and I thought that was too much. And then all of a sudden, there's like 100 and something people.
Warmed by the support of her peers, Crossland says what happened next left her shocked.
I had just opened my Bible and I was going to read a verse, and she interrupted me before I could even say anything.
She says it was the high school's vice principal.
Started yelling at us to get out, telling us that we were pushing our beliefs on these minors.
Her mom was coming back with more donuts when she saw what happened.
Just seeing her scream at her, it kind of got me all, I was really upset.
Michelle Crossland says the principal, James Crenshaw, who was not there at the time, called her husband to apologize.
I would like to have gotten something from the vice principal. I mean, it's just because Mr. Crenshaw, I don't consider him to be the one who did anything wrong.
He also released a statement via Facebook saying, in part, a large group of students abruptly left the cafeteria and headed to the front of the school. Unbeknownst to the administrator on duty, they were headed to the See You at the Poll event. It goes on to say there was a miscommunication about why the gathering was taking place, and they support the free speech of all students. The family says they accept Crenshaw's apology.
We love Flower Bluff. We love the school, the coaches, the teachers. Crenshaw is awesome. I've never met her before. I'm sure she's a super nice person also. It was just the way it was handled was really sad.
The principal also told Crossland she can reschedule the event. She says she plans on holding another one next week. Brady?
All right, thank you.
Now, common sense alert. Every student has a right to do this See at the Poll thing. It's been happening for over 30 years. You don't jump in and start saying to them, "Hey! You're pushing your police on these minors. Get out of here." You don't do that. If I did that, they would hate me. And if I saw what happened, you better believe that if we were friends, our friendship, over. Everyone has a right to do this event. That's what every person does. Try to understand, though, as we just try to understand when you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. That's what needs to happen here. That's it for Give Me a Break Throwback Thursday. Going into Friday. Coming up on Give Me a Break Friday. Going to school for 4 days a week. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Some pros and cons that you need to know before you before you take that survey. That's on Friday. And we'll be back again. We're back again next week for another Throwback Thursday. For everyone here at YouTube, good night.